Once again, everyone, welcome to the Growbots kickoff webinar. My name is Lauren Giacenti. I am a customer success manager here. Today we'll be going over a few things, primarily for today's agenda. What do we consider a successful onboarding? How to set up your Growbots account if you have not done so already. The Growbots outbound framework, as well as time for Q&A. So as mentioned, please don't hesitate to post any questions you may have throughout the webinar. I will be addressing them as we go, usually before moving on to another section or anything like that. We'll discuss, I'll address any questions, and we'll also have some time at the end as well. So first off, as I mentioned, my name is Lauren. I'm on the customer success team. We have quite a few team members. And there's almost always somebody available to help. We're always happy to assist. No question is too big or too small if you have anything that you ever need. So the easiest ways to reach us first would be in the chat app. So I'll show you how to utilize that and access this during the account setup training. In addition to the chat, you can email us at customers@growbots.com. Somebody will respond to you. As mentioned, somebody's pretty much available all the time. And then lastly, if you have a dedicated customer success manager, you can feel free to reach out to them directly. So the first thing we want to talk about is what is successful onboarding? Well, from Growbots' opinion, the very first thing is that you get more sales. That's the whole reason you chose us. That's the whole reason you're working with us. You want to grow your outbound, and your Growbots is here to help you with that. From a strategy standpoint, what are the average metrics that Growbots is seeing during the first month? Well, the first thing is we see an average of a 57% open rate, a 19% response rate, and a 3.5% warm leads rate. Now, obviously, these are averages, so they're going to vary by each person. But in order to achieve these rates that we really see the most successful customers getting is using 80% of their credits. So, for example, if your package has 1,000 credits available, you should be sending at least 800 communications, or you should be communicating with at least 800 prospects in order to achieve the average metrics we discussed before. In addition to these metrics, we consider successful onboarding these four main steps. And really, ideally, to complete these within your first week with Growbots really is a good sign that you're on the right track. So congratulate all of yourselves, pat yourself on the back. You have attended a kickoff call. That is your first step, and you have done it. So great job. In addition, there's actually kind of a step 1.1, if you will, which is connect your email account and upload either your do not contact list or connect your Salesforce account. I'll be going over that shortly here in the webinar, but that really needs to be completed before you can do your next step, which is to create a project. After that, you will create your first cadence, which is the communication that you'll be sending to prospects. And then lastly, the last step is to send out a campaign, which is the campaign is a combination of the project with the prospects that you'd like to send to, the cadence, which is the communication you're sending to those prospects. All that combined is your campaign. Again, our most successful users, they'll schedule their first campaign within the first 5 days of signing up with Growbots. So account setup. So your account setup is the next thing that we're going to go over. It's just kind of how to get started with Growbots. But before we go too much further, I want to go ahead and start a quick poll to see if there's anything specific you guys would like to have me focus on today. So you should be seeing a poll on your screen. If everybody could please be sure to respond. We'll just give everybody a minute here and just let me know what you would like to go into more detail on, or if there's anything specific you have questions about. Okay, looks like almost everybody's responded. So please, once again, everybody take a minute to just fill out the poll here so we can be sure to cover anything in specific you guys are looking for. All right, just another minute. You guys could please make sure you all respond to the poll. so I can make sure that you guys are getting the most out of today's webinar. Okay, almost all results are in. It looks like for the most part, people want to learn about generating prospects. So perfect, thank you. Everybody has responded, I appreciate it. Yep, most of you are looking to learn about generating prospects, which is great. We're going to go over that shortly after account setup. And then additionally, we have some people looking tied for second place with setting up your Growbots account and how to write killer outbound messages. So we'll be covering all of that today, and we'll also discuss how to master targeting and creating a schedule and scheduling campaigns. But we'll spend a little extra time on generating prospects. So thank you again for all participating. So as mentioned, we're going to start with the account setup. So account setup, when you do receive your login, if you have not already, please don't hesitate to reach out to your AE or your customer success manager. But the first screen you'll see when you're logged in here is your Growbots dashboard. So this is just a quick overview of your account. So you can see your email accounts that are connected, whether or not your Salesforce account is connected, and then just quick links to access your new projects or create a new cadence. You'll see over here in the right-hand corner your little help icon. This is incredibly important because, as mentioned, this is where you access your chat. So if you click the help icon, the first thing you can do is search. So if there's a question about anything, regarding your account or regarding any of the features within Growbots, you could start by just typing it in and searching our articles that way. We have a great resources, so usually you can find an answer pretty quickly here. If it's something that you need a little bit more assistance with, don't hesitate to click the chat with us button. There's somebody available almost all the time, except for during the wee hours when we're all trying to get some sleep. But majority of the time, there's somebody available on chat. That's the only reason I'm not going to click it right now. And once you click chat, somebody will respond. If it is during one of those off hours that we are away from the chat, somebody will respond as soon as they log in. So we all have different shifts. So you'll get to meet, hopefully, a number of us from the customer success team. You can also access our online trainings. So you're taking today's webinar, but if you ever wanted a refresher or have another team member who you'd like to join, they can access this here. And additionally, we have a plethora of videos available on tutorials on how to set up your Growbots account and addressing some of the main questions as well. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how you get started with connecting your Growbots. So as you can see here, we have an email address already connected. There's two main ways to access to add your email account. The first would be via Gmail. So if you have a Gmail account, simply log in your web browser, click the G+ Connect Gmail account here, and you'll go through an authentication process. Additionally, you can connect an email via SMTP IMAP account. So if you click this, you'll need to know some basic information, which is your email, your IMAP domain, your port, which is most common is 993, your IMAP username and password, your SMTP domain, which usually is the same as your IMAP, sometimes it's slightly different, and your port as well, which 465 is the most common. Most IMAP and SMTP configurations use the same user and password. However, if your SMTP is different than your IMAP username, you can simply uncheck this box and it'll allow you to get this to enter in the username and password as well. Additionally, in our knowledge base, which you can search over here, we list out a majority of the most common ports and setup for IMAP and SMTP configuration. Once you connect your email address, the status that says active here means that you're good to go and you can send emails from from your Growbots account. If you ever see an error or this little box turns red, it usually means there's an issue with your email address. Usually the most common is there's a password problem. If you do see this here, you will see over on the right-hand side a option to reconnect. Now, it's very, very important you do not click the disconnect button. If there's an issue with your email account and you click disconnect, it will actually error all of your cadences that you might have active, versus if it says reconnect and you reconnect that email address, it will allow you, it'll be much easier to pick up your cadences where they left off. But if you disconnect, it actually deletes the entire instance. And even if you reconnect the exact same email address, it looks at it as a unique email address. It doesn't reference your old ID that's associated with it. Additionally, you can see where you can connect your CRM here. So we already have a Salesforce instance connected. However, if you don't have Salesforce and you plan to just use a do not contact list, you can upload your CSV from the screen as well. It's important to note the only column that's really required is your website, which actually the website would be the general domain of the people you don't want to communicate with. So keep in mind, this is at a enterprise or company level. This is not on an individual level. So for example, you can see down here, the website is Growbots, and a sample email would be gregs@growbots.com. However, if you upload this list as is, it would exclude anybody at Growbots that has a domain of growbots.com from your searches. So if you have an individual basis that you need to exclude subscribers from, not a company level, I will go over that in a little bit briefly in the project section. But just keep in mind that you do have the ability to upload a do not contact list to ensure that we don't provide prospects in your searches for somebody that you're already communicating with or wish not to communicate with. One other note is when you connect your Salesforce account, and make sure you do have to be a Salesforce admin, and additionally you do have to have API available with your Salesforce account. So additionally in your account setup, if you are a admin for your account, you will see your account, your organization, billing, and sign out. If you are not an admin for your Growbots account, you will only see your account. So I'm going to go ahead and access my account just to show you a few quick things. So the first is your personal information. It shows your first name, last name, the email address associated with your user. Keep in mind that this is your user's email address. This is not the email address you're sending from necessarily. What type of account you have. You can also change your password. And then there's two main features to keep in mind on this page. The first is the rescheduling, which is the automatic out-of-office rescheduling. So if you were to send out a campaign and Growbots detected an out-of-office response with a valid date in it, we can automatically reschedule those emails to go out the day after somebody returns to the office. This does not mean you do not have to have this enabled, but if you do not, you will have to manually reschedule all out-of-office messages. Additionally, if you like to have a nice clean inbox as I do, you can enable any one or all of these folder management tools. So Growbots will scan any replies that are out of office, maybe they bounced or have a negative sentiment, and they can organize these three categories into separate folders, and it will push to your folder, these folders, if you have this enabled. Again, this is not required and you do not have to do this, but it is an option. That's nice to keep your inbox clean. Again, if you are on the integrations tab, you can access your email accounts and whether or not your CRM is connected. This is another great tool if you don't utilize Salesforce. So in addition to the do not contact list, you can upload or add a BCC email address. So for example, if you use HubSpot for your CRM management, there is a email address in your admin panel that you can include here. And what it'll do is it'll track any communications that you send via Growbots and BCC your CRM to notify of the activity that may be occurring on that particular lead. If you are an admin for your account, you will see this organization tab. The organization tab is where you are able to add new users. Additionally, it is where you will manage whether or not you want to track clicks in your messages. So if you plan to utilize a lot of links in your email, which isn't always advised, I highly recommend utilizing click tracking. If you don't plan to utilize a lot of links within your message, don't necessarily need to worry about it. Additionally, this is where you can sign up to be a beta tester. So if you want to test out new features that are going to be coming up, feel free to check this box as well. Again, not required. And you can also access your uploaded Do Not Contact list from this screen. The last tab is billing, and that's where you will access anything payment regards that you need. So basically, the four main things to take away with your account setup are connecting your email address, uploading a Do Not Contact list, or connecting your CRM, and then lastly, enabling folder management if you choose so. So before I move on to the next step, which is your outbound framework, are there any questions? So Matt, I think I may have addressed your question about utilizing HubSpot. So you can utilize HubSpot. The only thing is you won't be able to connect it the same way you connect with Salesforce. So you can upload a Do Not Contact list. You can additionally include the BCC email address to track any activity. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we move along? So from Josh, if we integrate with our Salesforce, do the emails get sent from Salesforce? So no, Josh, your emails will still go out of the group. Well, let me rephrase that. When you integrate with Salesforce, it's tracking your activity and it's checking for deduplication or for duplicate records. So essentially what we're trying to do is ensure that any records that you have already in Salesforce that you don't want to communicate with, you don't. The emails itself will go through your email server. So if you connect an email address, either via Gmail or SMTP, your emails are deployed through your own server, but they will not go through the Salesforce integration. However, if it helps, the activity will be tracked in Salesforce as long as you enable it. Okay, so moving on, feel free again, if you have more questions, just post them and I will get to them as we can. So outbound framework essentially is comprised of three main points: targeting, cadences, and then sending your campaigns. So targeting is the prospects. It's generating prospects. So it's utilizing the project tool that we have available in Growbots. Cadences is, again, the communication that you're sending out. We'll go over that shortly. And then lastly is the deployment of both your cadences to your targets. So when we say targeting in the Growbots app, this information is located in your projects. So in this particular example, you can see we have a number of projects already set up. You can also import prospects. So if you're using another CRM such as HubSpot that you want to be able to communicate with and you want to utilize the Growbots app to communicate with, you can import the prospects here. We have detailed instructions on how to do so. You can create a new project from this screen. Also on the project screen, you can see any new prospects that you might have associated or generate new prospects. You can see the progress of your campaign. So if you actually have deployed a cadence to this list of potential prospects, you can see where you are from here. You can edit, clone, and delete projects. So two things to keep in mind. Cloning is a great way to set a base criteria and then duplicate that for other options. And we'll get into that in a minute. But so, for example, this is called CEO and Founders of Startups in the US. If I wanted to use the same criteria, but maybe for Canada, I could simply clone this project and then edit the information that I need to make it an additional segment that I could communicate with. Additionally, if you delete a project, if you have generated any prospects with that project and you delete it, it can actually mess up your credits account. So if this ever occurs, just let us know. Feel free to post in chat, hey, I deleted this project, and now my count is off, even though I didn't accept any of the prospects. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at an existing project to kind of walk you through all of the steps here. So the screen you're looking at now basically covers what we call targeting. So they're simple and advanced. So if you have just a generic bunch of information that you want to communicate to just about anybody, feel free to use the simple option. I prefer to use advanced because it gives you a few additional features. So the first thing you'll see here are your verticals. So who do you want to communicate with? Do they work in a specific industry? Maybe they provide a specific type of service. You can search, or you can go through the categories on the left-hand side here. Now, it's important to note that 0 out of 147 means that there are no search criteria here. So that doesn't mean it's not going to search for any of these. It means it's not going to use this as a reference. So again, if your potential customers are in a number of verticals and you don't want to get down to the nitty gritty, feel free to leave this as none, and it will not use this as a criteria. Additionally, in your location here, you can see by country. So if you're looking to do business within a specific region or a specific continent or country, you can simply make these selections here. Further down, you will be able to make those a little bit more tailored. Additionally, you will look at your number of employees. So maybe you're looking to target large companies or small companies. So for example, the one we gave before was your startups. If you're looking to communicate with a large company, you might use a different tone of voice. So you might want to set up a project specifically for people that are, maybe parts of Fortune 500s and such. You can select anything from 1 to infinity. And now we get to the job position. So the job position is the important piece here. It's all important, but you know what I mean. So your job position is who you're trying to communicate with. And it's very important to consider this before you go too far into your targeting. So are you trying to communicate with people that are the decision makers? Or are you trying to communicate with somebody who maybe isn't the final decision maker, but has their ear or is in charge of a specific task? So in this example, you can see here, we're looking for mostly C-level employees or heads of departments, and we want to avoid using assistants and interns. So as you can see, these are all blue, and which means that we're going to look for those types of terms. But in the red here, if you want to omit certain keywords or titles, you can simply add a negative sign in front of the keyword, and it will automatically exclude those types of people from your that contain that word or that phrase from your search. Additionally, if you're looking for a very specific title, you can put brackets around a keyword. So for example, Director of Digital Marketing. So by adding brackets, what this does, I'm so sorry, not brackets, parentheses. What this does is this is going to look for this exact phrase. So if you see here where it says Director of Digital Marketing, with the red dashed line around it, it means it's only going to look for people who have the title Director of Digital Marketing. Now there might be a word in front of it, such as Senior Director of Digital Marketing, or a word after it, Director of Digital Marketing and Sales. But if you look at this example versus, say, Vice President Marketing, if you don't include the brackets, this is going to look for anybody who has these 3 keywords in their title. So in any order, and with any possible words in between. So this could be Vice President of Brand Marketing or Vice President of Sales Marketing, these types of things. So the more specific you get here, the better your results will be. Additionally, when you type in keywords, Growbots will automatically suggest additional job titles to consider. So the company name is a great way to make sure that you either include or exclude certain companies from your search. So for example, if I want to make sure that I get information from companies, except I don't want to include Google in my search, I can enter their name in there. Additionally, if I include a keyword such as Yahoo, now it's going to tailor my search so it only looks for people who work with a company name of Yahoo. So you can also use, I highly always recommend using company name as a great way to tailor your search or to exclude existing customers. You can also select your global traffic rank. So this refers to the Alexa ranking of the traffic of the company's website. So just remember, the more visitors, the smaller the number. So if you have if your rank is number one, it means you have one of the most trafficked site versus infinity. The lower the ranking, the lower the traffic. One thing to keep in mind here too is that sometimes smaller businesses will have a higher ranking because they're doing more of a web effort versus maybe a Fortune 500 manufacturing company will have a lower global ranking for traffic because they don't do as much business digitally. The next field here is technologies. So this is very important if you support or service a very specific technology. This is going to pull in from their public website. So if you're looking for an ERP system or an offline CRM, this is not going to be the place you're going to look for it. But as you can see here, this is looking for anybody who might use Magento, Shopify, or WooCommerce. Adding this information here will again tailor your information down. This is where I was saying you can tailor your location. So for example, if I was looking for people within the United States, but I only wanted to set up a project for people that are in the New York region, because maybe, for example, I'm located in New York and I want to have on-site meetings, I could use this advanced location to narrow down my field and maybe adjust my cadence to say, hey, you're in New York City, I'm in New York City, let's meet. You do have to select the parent company before you can, the parent country before you can tailor the advanced location. So for example, if I wanted to include Ontario in my search, I would have to make sure I selected Canada in the above location. Prospect advanced keywords is a way to further narrow down who you're trying to speak with. So maybe you're looking for C-level employees of a company who also have experience in security or networking. But I don't want to deal with anybody who's worked with payroll. So by including those types of keywords, it's going to further tailor my search. And it's going to make those adjustments, looking for those types of keywords. Oh, I apologize. Can you guys still hear me? So picking up where I left off, just as I was mentioning, so you have the prospects and advanced keywords. So these are going to search the public information about each individual prospect and either look for those keywords or exclude certain keywords. And then you can also do the same for companies. So maybe you're looking for software as a service type companies. So by including those types of keywords, it's going to further narrow down your search for companies that are maybe within a certain, not just vertical, but in a certain market. And just like with the job position suggestions, when you type in a single keyword, Growbots will automatically suggest other relevant keywords for that particular company. And then the last field for your targeting here is saying how many prospects you want to generate from a single company. So we don't recommend limiting less than 3, but you can most certainly select only 1, and anywhere from, anything above that. But just keep in mind that this is going to really limit your search, and there's also not a hierarchy to it. So for example, if I were to implement I don't want to generate more than 2 prospects from a single company, the Growbot system is not going to discern whether they return the vice president of marketing or the CMO and the VP of marketing. So there's not necessarily a hierarchy to it. So the only time I really recommend utilizing this feature is if you tend to generate some prospects and you're noticing you're getting a lot from a single company, or if you're not as concerned with who you're going to communicate with, you can also limit it as there. And then the last function here is this estimate button you will see. So estimate is going to return about how many prospects we have in the system to communicate with. Now keep in mind the estimate does not take into account if you've uploaded a do not contact list, or it does not communicate directly with your Salesforce system. So if you have a lot of people on your do not contact list or a lot of people in your Salesforce, this number you might not actually be able to generate about that many prospects. So, but in this instance, it's telling me there's about 5,000 prospects available, which is great. So that's kind of a high-level view of targeting. Are there any questions before I move on to the next phase? Okay, nothing coming through just yet. So again, don't hesitate if you guys have questions. Just feel free to post them, and I'll go over it as we continue. So the next thing we're going to talk about here are cadences. So cadences are the communications that you're sending out to the prospects that we are trying to find. So you can see here that we have a whole lot of tests in here. The status, so if you've used this cadence, if it's associated with leads, you'll see it here. Not used means it's been created, but it hasn't been deployed yet. Show is what you click to view the cadence. If you plan to do an A/B test, cloning is a great tool. So this will allow you to set up a cadence, and then if you want to maybe test subject lines or test a different call to action, simply clone the cadence, make the change, and then you can deploy to the different groups and see how the results go. Deleting cadences, I always caution deleting cadence. If you haven't used it, it's not deployed, you can delete it. But keep in mind, if you delete a cadence that's active, it will error, and you will not be able to just instantly pick it back up. It will be quite the process. And you can also create a brand new cadence up in the top right-hand corner. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this B cadence here. And so it's going to show you that it's going to start, there's a couple of key features here. So the first thing we always recommend is personalizing your subject line. So if I click edit, you can see the first thing it's showing me is that I have a warning, which is this cadence is in use. So if I make any changes, it's going to apply and affect immediately. So for example, if this email is set to deploy in 30 minutes and I make a change, when that email deploys in 30 minutes, it's going to pick up those changes. So that is good to note that maybe you deployed an email and then all of a sudden you caught a typo. If you catch it before the scheduled send time and you make the change, it will pick it up, but it will not retroactively change it. So for example, if this email went out at 9 a.m. this morning, and I make a change to this first email, it will only pick it up for the future sends. It will not retroactively change your email. So another thing to note here too as well, so the send at is the sending time that you're going to deploy this at. So for example, you set the time and then whether you want it to deploy from the prospect's time zone or your time zone. We always recommend selecting the prospect's time zone, although that's totally your discretion. We also recommend sending Monday through Friday only, although you do, again, have the ability to send all 7 days. So for example, if I were to select Tuesday and Wednesday, emails that will be deployed to prospects would only deploy on Tuesday and Wednesday at 12 p.m. on the prospect's time zone. So today is Tuesday, but let's pretend today was Monday. If I scheduled this cadence to go out, it would not deploy till 12 p.m. on Tuesday. You enter in your from name here. We always recommend making it something personal, so an actual name, not an alias or a company. We also recommend including some sort of personalization in the subject line. So you can see the append the custom fields here. These are company, first name, last name, and position. Are automatically included in your account as part of the Growbots feature. We also have a couple of test company custom fields you can see here. There's a lot of information on importing custom fields in the knowledge base. That's not something we cover in today's training, but it is a great feature to utilize if you plan to. And then below the subject line, you can see your WYSIWYG editor, which is where you're going to edit the body of your email. Again, we encourage you to have some sort of first name or personalization here. Your first line of your email should be something engaging. So I have a question for you, or I happen to notice this about you or your company. So the information in the brackets here are the custom fields that they imported. But let's say, for example, I've got a question to this particular piece of information. You know, how do you keep your pipeline full? I've noticed that this company does this. And the next area should be how you are going to benefit this person. So for example, I'm asking you about this because we have a platform that does it instantly for you. So we think it would help you to communicate with us. Your third line should be some sort of call to action, and then sign with your name and a way to contact you. The one thing that the email is missing that is important to include is your custom unsubscribe link. So, if you don't want to communicate with me anymore, please, just click here or unsubscribe and I'll never speak to you again. I know there's been questions from people before about utilizing unsubscribe. It actually is better to use one than to omit it, because if you utilize unsubscribe, it shows people that you understand you might not be the right fit and they might not want to talk to you. Giving them that opt-out actually gives you more credit and trustworthy. It makes you a bit more trustworthy than not allowing for that. So if I go ahead and hit cancel here, because I don't want to make changes, you can see the email there. So from this, if this was a brand new cadence, I could add a message before or after, include an email in there. You can also click show preview from this screen. So all of the fields are just have lorem ipsum data in here. I'll show you how to you'll see the preview before actually sending an email. But if you click send preview down here in the right hand corner, it'll deploy a version of this email with the lorem ipsum in there, so you can make sure that it is generating the sample fields that you've provided. The send preview will go to the email address you have associated with your user. So as you can see, we have 3 emails in this series. So it's very important to point out one other thing here. The second email is you have a couple of options. So the first thing is you're going to send after however many days or hours. If this box is not checked, it means that it will go immediately. The same is true for your first email. If you do not tell it what time to send and what days of the week, as soon as you send an email or schedule an email, it will deploy. So in this instance, if I want this email to go 4 hours after my first email or 4 days, I want it to go at a specific time, and this time I want it to go off my Warsaw time zone, not the prospects. You can also select the days of the week again. So as we mentioned before with the criteria, so if I had left this if today was Monday and I had left this to schedule Tuesday and Thursday for the second email to go out, this email would go out on Tuesday, and then the system would look to see how many days it's been. So if this was, let's say, 2 days, if today was Wednesday, the system would check to see if all of this criteria was met. So keep in mind that all of these criteria have to be met for the second email to go out. So if my first email goes out on Monday, and at 7 a.m., and I set this email to go out 2 days after my first email, which that's 2 full 24-hour periods, and then I want it to send at 6:30 a.m., what will happen is this email will actually deploy on Thursday at 6:30 a.m. because Monday to Tuesday is a 24-hour period, and then Tuesday to Wednesday is a 24-hour period. However, since my first email went out at 7 a.m., and this email shouldn't go out till 6:30 a.m., it will look at this, it will say, okay, it's 6:30 a.m., but it hasn't been a full two days since the first email deploy, so the email will actually go out on Thursday. Additionally, you can include this in the previous message or start a new thread. So we recommend the first couple of emails being in the same, the message thread, in order to keep that message fresh and bumped up to the top of the inbox. So those are your cadences. Before we continue, I'm going to see if there's any questions. So Matt, are all these prospects generated by yourselves or provided by Growbots? So Matt, as I mentioned, there is the option to import prospects, but otherwise when you generate prospects, it will be strictly looking at the Growbots system. So Veronica, your question is if you have it to send after 2 days and the second day isn't checked, will it send on the next day? So the answer to your question is yes. If you have checked to send, let's say you have send after 2 days, and I have Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday checked, that email will not deploy till Friday, even though the 2-day criteria had been met by Wednesday. Josh's question, you have a campaign going via Salesforce. If you want to continue it in Growbots, should I paste the first 3 emails? The first 3 emails in the first email. So Josh, I think your question might be whether or not you should create 3 emails or a single one. I would recommend including the first 3 emails as their own individual emails. Um, but feel free to reach out to me afterwards if you want to communicate about this particular project. Okay, and then from Alicia, are emails sent to every lead from the given project? Can I choose only some contacts that I want to send the given email to? Yes, absolutely, Alicia. And we're going to cover that here in 1 minute. So I will show you how to do that. Okay, so now that you have your cadence set up and you have created your target, it's time to communicate with these prospects. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, I have my prospects lists, which to show you that real quick, so if you have multiple users using your account, but you want to be able to access a few projects quickly, you can pin them to your navigation. So by clicking the pin, it adds it to your navigation. However, projects can be accessed from anyone in your organization, but the pin is special to you. So if I pin only 3 of these, only 3 will show up for me, and however many my coworkers have pinned will show up for them. So I'm going to go ahead and go into an existing prospect and show you new prospects. However, if you haven't generated any prospects yet, when you first finish your targeting, you can click new prospects, and it's going to give you the option to generate them. Your current credit balance is actually an estimate. So the credits are not deducted from your account until you accept them. But again, this number will get skewed if you generate prospects and you do not accept or reject them. So, for example, so we'll go ahead and go into here and we'll say, okay, there's 13 prospects that have been generated based on the criteria I have provided. So from this screen, you can actually import and export data on these prospects. However, if you select this export button, your the email addresses will not be included. As you had mentioned before, Alicia, your question was whether or not you can select specific prospects to communicate with, and the answer is absolutely. So let's say there was all of these work, but I only want to communicate with maybe these 4 individuals. And I want to send these 4 individuals one cadence, but I want to send everybody else or another 4 individuals a different cadence. I can check those 4, and I can accept them and schedule a message to deploy. I can also accept and download them as a CSV, and if I click this button, their email addresses will be included in this. From this screen, you can also reject selected prospects. So it's important to reject some prospects if they don't meet the actual criteria you were looking for. So maybe this particular company is a competitor, or maybe these 4 people's title isn't quite what you're looking for. So you can select, you can either reject at an individual level, or you can select multiples and do it from here. If you reject the prospect, it will not generate this prospect again for this particular project. If you reject the company, it will not generate that company again should you generate more prospects in this particular project. Both can also be permanently rejected. So for example, if I know this prospect is a competitor of mine, I can reject the prospect or project permanently. If you select from this project, it will only apply to this e-commerce marketing decision makers project. If you reject permanently, that prospect or company will never be generated for future projects you create. So since this isn't mine, I don't want to actually click on anything, but I do want to actually show you how to deploy the cadence. So now that I've selected 4 prospects that I want to communicate with, going back to Alicia's example, and I want to send them a single cadence, I can go ahead and select accept for selected and schedule a message to send. So I'm going to go ahead and click accept. And now I'm going to select the cadence that I want to send. The first thing I need to do is select the email address I'm going to communicate with. I only have 1 email address associated with the account, so that was my only option. And then on the left-hand side here, you select what cadence you want to send. So we're going to go back to this B cadence that we were looking at. It's going to tell you when that email is going to deploy. So since that email did not have a send date and time originally, it will send immediately as soon as I click the schedule message button. This will preview all messages in the cadence and let you see exactly how all of it will generate. So for example, we have first name personalization. So you can see that how it's going to appear. You can check, and I highly recommend checking your prospects, at least a handful if you select multiples, just to make sure everything's generating correctly. Additionally, sometimes you personalize with a company name, and the company name we have listed is a bit longer than a company name you would normally include. If you click the details button, you can go into edit here, and you can actually edit the information. So example, if I wanted to include maybe an LLC or remove an LLC, I have the ability to do so. And when I hit done, it's going to automatically update that. I find this most helpful if you have a company that has an incredibly long email address and you don't want to include the whole thing in your subject line. You can also reject from this screen as well. And then finally, you can schedule messages. But since this isn't my project, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to click the back button. So generating prospects, it's important to note that you can adjust this number. You don't have to do 10 at a time, but I always recommend if it's the first time you're generating prospects for that particular project, only start with 10. If you go too much higher frequently, the system will take a while to generate those prospects. So start with 10, maybe bump up to 50. But if you put in some number like 1,000, it's going to take a while to actually run before you get that information. So if you have any emails scheduled, which you can see here on timeline, I do not currently, but if you have any emails scheduled to deploy, you would see them showing here. It will. We're going to jump over to the knowledge base real quick so I can show you a screenshot of what it would look like. So it's important to note on timeline, we recommend sending no more than 200 emails per channel per day. So if you look at this screenshot here, it shows you there's 2 email channels that are deploying, kate@growbots.io and kate@growbots.com. So kate@growbots.io is fine. It's sending out 64 emails on Saturday. So it's green and it's good to go. However, since you have over 200 emails scheduled for this particular the growbots.com, it's red and it's going to tell you that you should reschedule some of these. So rescheduling is very easy. If you were to click the kate@growbots.com, you would be able to click her email address and it would pull up our search function, which would show you anybody who was scheduled to deploy on that day with that particular cadence and email. So this is our search function, which is a wonderful tool. There's a lot of abilities in here, but I just want to show you a couple of main things. So these are all of the filters up top. Allows you to, the little eye here allows you to search anybody who has seen or opened your email. The finger button here is anybody who has clicked, but keep in mind you have to enable click tracking for that to work. You can search by when the last activity was, what project cadence, status. So if it's an in-progress email, it'll be one of these 2. If you've received a reply that was not qualified as an out-of-office, you would see it here. If you've enabled automatic rescheduling for out-of-office, it would have the status of in-progress out-of-office. If you export the file, it'll be noted here. Alerts means there's usually an issue. This person unsubscribed. Wrong email also means wrong data. So if you come across somebody who replies with, "This is not my job title, I no longer work here," you can feel free to label them as wrong email and notify us so we can make sure to look into the system and see why that information was not up to date. Let's say we had a series of people who, as mentioned, were, we were overscheduled. You would be able to select those people. So maybe I'm going to select these 4, and you can take some group actions. So you can qualify this person, meaning they were a great lead. You can unqualify individuals or groups of people, meaning they weren't a good fit, they weren't the right person. If you delete a person from a project, you will be able to generate them again in the future as long as you didn't unqualify them first. If these emails were still in progress, so for example, in the example we gave with Kate, she had too many emails scheduled. So I would want to pause the cadence And then once it was listed as pod, I could click schedule continuation, and I would be able to schedule a new email for the future. And then lastly, start new cadence. So maybe these people all received the email, they took no action. So I want to follow up with them in maybe 2 months and schedule a drip campaign for another future communication. You can do that from this screen as well. And then lastly, we have our reports, which it may take a minute to load. So reports is just giving you a high-level snapshot of your account to let you know how everything is going. So we'll see if anything is going to pop up here. Sometimes it takes a minute. While that's loading, oh, of course, there it goes. So you can see we have 233 people we have actively communicated with in this time span. We have an 80% open rate. We don't have click tracking enabled, so we have no clicks. We've received 47 replies to our communications, and out of that, we've had about a 3% warm lead rate. So warm leads are people that have replied to you with either a neutral or a positive message, and that's our system looks at sentiment to see if we can discern that. You can search by projects or cadences. To go to an individual project, you can just simply click the link and it'll open up that project in the search feature. Okay, so that is the general of sending cadences and reports. So next we're going to go over some best practices. So start your targeting by defining your ideal customer profile. Research your current customers, set up projects for different targets in Growbots and make them specific. So defining your ideal customer profile, look at one of your best customers, your brand champion, and look at the information, all the different attributes we talked about in targeting, and see what types of maybe certifications or skill sets they have. What size company do they work for? To write your emails, consider keeping them short and a personalized subject. Engage them with an opening line that connects you with them. Maybe you both attended a conference. Maybe you work in the same vertical. Talk about the benefits of your software or services, not your features. Don't tell them that you are one of the top ranked search engines. Tell them why that matters to this person. Include a very clear call to action, and usually we recommend having 3 to 4 messages in a cadence. Additionally, as mentioned, send based on the prospect's time zone. Emails are best received between 7 and 10 a.m., Tuesday through Thursday. And then keep a 3 to 4 day span in between your communications. And pretty much everything except for your very last email, which we call the breakup email, which is, hey, I've been reaching out to you. You're not interested. I understand. Just let me know, and I won't communicate with you anymore. Keep those in the previous threads to keep them bumped to the top of the inbox. Connect multiple email addresses so you can send more than 200 messages a day. Check your number on timeline as messaged, and make sure to send yourself a test message first. And consider your replies to these people. So when you receive the reply or you go to reply, you're going to reply from your inbox. Make sure it's timely and relevant. Again, managing your replies, it will be in your inbox. Check the progress filter as well in the search feature that I just mentioned. So see if you have any new replies. Sometimes the system will update before you've gotten a chance to check your inbox. Make sure that everything does seem to be appearing correctly, and you can actually track the type of communications that have gone. We recommend including your out-of-office automatic rescheduling. Schedule continuations, so schedule a new cadence once you've exhausted the communications within the existing cadence. And then again, check the results in the report section frequently. So what is your next step? Again, great job. You attended the kickoff call. Well done. Connect your email address and your Salesforce CRM, or upload your Do Not Contact list. Start generating your prospects within a project. Create a cadence, and then deploy that cadence. So I hope I've addressed everybody's questions as we continue on. So we have about 4 minutes left here, so I want to address any outstanding questions you may have. So Alicia asked, can I enter contacts manually? Yes, you can absolutely enter contacts manually. So the only way to do that is via an import though, but you can either do that in an existing project or create a new project. To import them into an existing project, you simply click the import export data and click the import data, import data option. So this would be if you would select this import data if you have your own prospects you want to communicate with and include in a particular cadence. If you go to our knowledge base, which again is a great tool, which is simply Growbots, resources.growbots.com, and you look up importing, you can see a sample file. Let me see, here it is. You can use the sample file CSV that will give you a template that you can utilize to import your prospects. If you do want to enter, we do not have an option for you to enter them in manually. You do have to import the CSV. You can edit data manually though. So for example, if I look at this particular customer and I want to edit this information, I can do that from this screen. I simply can't just select add new prospect and enter in the information. You would have to enter via a CSV. Are there any other questions? We have about 2 minutes left. Well, if there are no more questions, I would just really like to thank all of you for attending and joining us at Growbots. Again, a couple of quick resources. Again, resources.growbots.com is a wonderful tool, wonderful knowledge base. It's a great way to get some quick access to any questions you may have. Don't hesitate to reach out to us again at customers@growbots.com or via the in-app chat. We're always here. We're always happy to answer your questions and help you get the most out of your account. So thank you again for attending today, and we look